Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. This is Ciara from Ciara T Designs and today I have this card for you on the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. So let's jump right in. I am going to make an A2 sized card, so I already have my cardstock cut down and I just have an extra panel here that I like to use for Copic Coloring. I am going to use Gina K's Amalgam Ink for my Copic Coloring, but this is a bit different because I stamped out my Copic Safe ink for the Copic Coloring, but we're going to go and emboss it in the end here. So I'm going to walk you through. Don't take the stamp out of the Misti. That's kind of the biggest problem there, because if you take it out, you can't emboss it later. But for the Copic Coloring, I am going to use RV00, RV23, and RV55 for my blooms here. And this is the Pinkfresh Happy Blooms Floral stamps, and I'm going to bring the dies in as well. And I'm just choosing it to color it with Copics. There are also stencils and different things you could do with these. I chose to color them with my Copic markers because I love how those look. And I am kind of doing a little bit of a more loose color because of how this is drawn. I think that it really fits with this well. So that's kind of the direction I went. And I kind of chose colors I thought would look really pretty with some gold embossing. And I love pink and gold. So this card kind of took a few different directions as I was making it. So bear with me. We get there in the end, but you're going to see like a panel come in at some point and it was going to be my background, but it was just too busy. So I changed my mind on it. I'll point it out to you guys when we get there. But so for Copic Coloring, I like to lay a wash of my lightest color down, and then I go in with my mid-tone, and then my darkest tone, and then I blend through again. So then I'll go back through to the mid-tone and then back to the lightest tone. This is how I choose to Copic Color. There's no wrong way to do this. You could have done this in one wash and done a more flat color. I really like to play with the blends. So I have a tendency towards usually a 3-color blend, and I kind of try to play with my blends to see what I can come up with. So for the greens, I'm going to use G00, G12, and G03 in that order, just because G03 is actually quite a bit darker than the other two. And I go back through again, see, into my mid-tone, and then I will blend out again with my lightest tone. And I am going to use that pink blend for the majority of the very big blooms. And then I'm going to bring in a set of yellow markers here to do the like little flowers and then the big flower up in the left-hand corner there. And for my yellow blend, I'm going to use Y02, Y06, and Y08. And you're not going to be able to tell a huge difference on the camera. You can see it in person, but they're not vastly different colors. And then I bring in Y17, which I think makes them pop a bit better. This isn't like a more orange yellow than a yellow, for lack of a better way to say that. And you'll see it come together a lot better when I do that bigger bloom up in the left-hand corner, because I'm going to use the exact same 3 colors again. Or sorry, in this case it's 4 colors, because I brought in the more orange color just to add a little more contrast and a little more depth to the colors. So I like how that turns out. Again, you don't have to have 3 colors. A lot of these images are a bit smaller, so you could have a 2-color blend or a 1-color blend. I think it still looks beautiful, but this is just how I kind of like to play with my Copic markers. So you can see here I'm going to lay a wash of my lightest color, which is Y02, and then I go in and add some blend with my Y06, which would be my mid-tone. And then I come back in with what would be my darkest tone, which is the Y08. But as I said, I'm going to bring in the Y17 just to make it pop even more. And with these, because my colors were so much closer to each other, I didn't actually go back through them all. I left it for the added contrast. So you can go through and blend them better. You can leave them a little darker. It's totally up to you. That's the beauty of Copic Coloring. And then I did take my 3 darker yellows and add them into the center of the pink flowers because I thought they'd be stunning. So this is what I was saying when I said don't remove the stamps from the Misti. You do need a stamping platform for this kind of a technique just because we're going to restamp it after we've colored it. I don't suggest that you color with Copic markers over embossing powder just because it can damage your nibs. So this is just kind of a trick around it. So I left it in. I'm going to stamp it again after we've done all the coloring, and then we're going to bring in some gold embossing powder. Just because I originally had an idea of this beautiful pink and gold background, which you're going to see pop in the screen here pretty quick. But in the end, it was just too busy with these flowers. So we're going to change directions and do something a bit different, which I think turns out stunning. And you would have seen in the beginning image when I first did that. But I love embossing powder. I think it's one of the most magical things that we have in the crafting space. I love watching it melt. It never seems to get old, no matter how many times I've used it. It's always so exciting. I don't know why. I think it's just so magical to watch embossing powder melt, which maybe makes me a little odd, but I love it. So I'm going to melt this embossing powder until it's smooth and all melted. And then we're going to go on to using the matching dyes. And you can see there, it just like the shimmer and shine, right? It's so stunning. But you can see here in the left-hand corner, you see that little background. It has some pink and gold stripes. That was the original background I was going to use for this card, but as I said, it was just too busy with my floral images. So I'm going to do something a bit different with how we're going to kind of finalize this card a bit. It turned out really pretty. I love how it looks. It's a Pinkfresh sets of stencils, but it did not work for this card, sadly. So I'm sure it'll show up in a different video, but for now it didn't make it into this card. But yeah, so those are the coordinating dies, so we just cut those out. So for this, we're actually going to do a embossing folder instead. So this is the Botanical embossing folder. The mini one that Tim Holtz just came out with would actually work a lot better than this one for what I'm after here. I'm just trying to create a little panel that would go behind my flowers, and I think the Botanical is stunning. And Tim Holtz recently came out with a miniature one, and I think that would have worked beautifully for this because it would be set up better for how small I want the panel, but I use what I have, but yeah, that mini one would have been perfect. And then I'm going to bring in my embossing powder again, and I'm going to stamp out my sentiment. So I chose a thank you sentiment from Spellbinders Tweet Sentiments. I think they're so pretty. So I chose to emboss this straight onto the base of my A2 sized card. And then I'm just going to bring in the exact same embossing powder and whatnot that we used on the flowers there so that they all kind of coordinate with the same gold shade. So I'm just going to emboss that straight up, and you're going to see the embossing again because, again, I just like to watch it. That's my favorite thing ever, I think. And I did treat it with an anti-static powder bag just to make sure that I didn't have pieces of embossing trying to stick everywhere. And then here you see I'm going to play with my layout a little bit. Now I did go and put another piece of cardstock behind my panel here just because I wanted it to adhere well to my base, and I was concerned with all those divots it wouldn't. So I did do that kind of off camera. It was just me adhering another piece of cardstock to the back. It also will give it a little bit of depth. So I like to do that when I don't want to add too much depth. I didn't really add a lot of dimension to this card. You absolutely could. You can see that I have the thin 3D foam squares in the corner there. I was going to maybe prop one of these florals up, but in the end I chose to actually just adhere them together and then leave them be. I tend to use a heavier weight cardstock, so usually my pieces are pretty substantial on their own. So, and I laid it out how I wanted it to, and then I just put on some liquid glue and adhered my two pieces together, just so that it was easier for me to adhere them to the base when I got to that point. So I'm going to adhere the two layers together. I just used my Barely Art glue, which is one of my newest favorite liquid glues. This thing is so great, and it comes with that little tip, so it makes it so easy. And then I'm going to put glue all over the back where I think that it's going to touch the cardstock. Keep in mind, because it is a 3D background on this card, it is going to be a little bit interesting to get it adhere. I didn't have too many problems, but I did have to put pressure on it for a little bit just to make sure it would stay there. So just be aware of that. I mean, you can weigh it down with something heavy and that'll make it even easier. And then I did bring in some Pinkfresh Glacier jewels just to tie this together. And because I can't ever resist adding glitter, I add glitter to all the things. It's one of my favorite things about crafting is that I get to make everything shiny and pretty. So I would love to know what you guys think of this card. I'm going to hold it up here and let you see it in all its glory. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, and I'd love if you guys would consider subscribing. There are a lot of amazing designers on this team, and we would appreciate your support. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.